Hey, and welcome to the CJ Sweat Show Weekend Special. For those of you who are listening to the first time, I typically do Virginia Sports Report. But today I am going to bring you something special. I'm going to do a weekend special as we will cover a variety of topics from the NFL Draft to the NBA MVP Award. All of that and more starts right now. I'm not bringing the bias here. You are.
What they do up there? Brainwashing?
Hey, it's not my fault that your team is terrible.
Let me explain. No, there is too much. Let me sum up.
This is just honest. I'm sorry if it hurts. Oh wait, I'm not really sorry.
Put that coffee down.
This is a weekend special of the CJ Sweat Show. Thank you all for joining us on this afternoon. This probably comes as a bit of a surprise to you. So, to those of you who are big fans of me, fans of our show, let me kind of explain what we are doing with this. So, I decided, about a month or so ago, we were going to start doing Virginia Sports Report, and we would cover Division I college teams throughout the state of Virginia, but I didn't want to completely let this die down too, so what I've decided to do is every once in a while, I'm going to publish a weekend special where I will cover a variety of topics, and it's not going to be consistent, it won't be every weekend, but it will be every once in a while, and I'll make sure you guys know when that's happening. So there's a lot of great things going on this weekend and over the next couple of weeks that I wanted to get to. And today, right now, by the way, happening as I record this, is the Masters. And I'm very excited for this. It would be great for golf if Tiger Woods were to find a way to finish in the top 10 of this tournament. Probably won't, but that would be huge. And it's good to see Tiger back in competitive form, even if he doesn't have a chance to win this thing. The first thing I really want to get to today, though, is this NFL draft, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are confused about what's going on. And by a lot of people, I don't mean just fans. I mean, there's a lot of experts out there, and you're getting a lot of information. So my job in doing this podcast is to not give you more information. My job is to help you dissect the information you have already been given. So let's talk about these draft quarterback prospects, because this to me is the heart of the draft. It's the sexiest part of the draft, and it's what everybody seems to be the most confused about. Okay, there are 3 traits every successful NFL quarterback had in college. The first of which is that they were accurate. Okay, every successful NFL quarterback right now, you can go back 30, 40 years ago and find an exception, but right now, every single one completed 60% of their passes or more during their college career. Every single one, you can go look at their scouting reports, every single one had something to the effect of good awareness, instinct, or pocket presence. That little tagline is on every single scouting report of the current franchise quarterbacks in the NFL. And the last thing is, they're an adult. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're Vince Young stupid or Johnny Manziel frat boy, you won't make it in this league. So anytime you see anybody that does not fit into these 3 categories, they will not work. They have to at least fit into 2 of them, and they really need to fit into all 3. Okay, here's the second thing. There's one trait that we media members, experts, give way too much credit to. Okay, so here's a list of quarterbacks who are liked because of this one trait. Jake Locker, Mitch Trubisky, Paxton Lynch, Christian Hackenberg, and Vince Young. They were all liked coming out of college because they had this tremendous arm strength and could throw the ball a mile. Okay? And the reason why they're liked is because these quarterbacks have worked in the NFL. Big Ben, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford, Joe Flacco, and Andrew Luck. All of those are strong arm quarterbacks we all absolutely love to watch. But here's the thing about every single one of those quarterbacks. They all completed 62% of their passes or more right now in the NFL. And they all completed 60+% in their collegiate career. Locker, Trubisky, Lynch, Hackenberger, and Vince Young did not complete 60% in their college career. Now, people love Big Ben because he's this big quarterback. He's got the strong arm. He's got the brand. But did you know that Big Ben actually completes 64% of his passes and is regarded as one of the most accurate passers in the NFL among scouts and GMs? Most people, when you think of Big Ben, you don't think accuracy, but he actually is a very good quarterback in that regard. So the magic number here for all of these quarterbacks is 60%. The only franchise quarterback in the NFL right now who completes under that is Cam Newton. And he completed 59% of his passes last year. He's also a physical freak. So I would not be comparing most of these prospects to Cam Newton. It should also be noted that Cam can be incredibly up and down, and even though his completion percentages are below 60%, he still completed 66% in his last year with Auburn. Okay, so now all of that being said, there's one quarterback in these list of prospects that I believe to be absolutely 100% overrated, and that is Josh Allen. He is by far the most overrated quarterback in this class, and he might be one of the most overrated quarterbacks I've ever seen come into the draft. Okay, his completion percentage in college at Wyoming was 56%. Now, I give that number out to people, and they're like, okay, well, that's not really that big of a deal. Okay, well, it is, but let's dig a little deeper than that. Those numbers got worse whenever he faced a halfway decent pass rush. Okay, against Oregon, Allen completed 37% for a whopping 64 yards. 64 yards. Against Boise State, he completed 44%, and he threw 2 picks against Iowa. Okay, those are the only 3 teams on his schedule last year that he faced that had even a capable defense. Everybody else were these crappy Mountain West teams that were not very good at all. And he picked those teams apart. But even in those games, like against Air Force, for example, he only threw the ball 13 times. In fact, during Josh Allen's career, he only averaged 24 passing attempts per game. On 3 separate occasions, just this past season, he threw under 20 passes. So here's my question. If Josh Allen is so great, why would the Wyoming coaches not let him throw more than 24 times a game? If he's so great, why not? In the NFL, by the way, I don't believe you have to throw 40 to 50 times per game, but you better at least be able to throw 30 and complete 60% of those passes. If you cannot do that, you will not succeed in the NFL level. Lastly, Josh Allen wasn't in anyone's top 3 list of quarterbacks until the NFL Combine. And this, to me, was the absolute killer when I was comparing Josh Allen. Okay, the Combine is like going on a blind date with your best friend's sister-in-law. Sure, she's really pretty. It may be even fun on that first date. But that first date isn't real life, and there's a reason your friend married the sister and not the in-law. This Combine isn't real. The Combine is a test of how fast you can run and how far you can throw. It in no way depicts how well you will do in the NFL because there's no pass rush and there's no real defensive schemes. So, like this Combine thing, I say that people are like, oh, then the Combine just means nothing, I guess. No, it means something, but it doesn't mean nearly as much for these quarterbacks. For the quarterbacks, here's what I'm most concerned about when it comes to the Combine. I want to know what was your Wonderlic test? A, because that we have found does correlate to NFL success, and B, I want to know what you were like in the interviews. And even if you ace both of those, that doesn't necessarily mean to me you're going to be a great NFL quarterback. That means, okay, we've passed 2 barriers. This Combine, everybody gets so enamored with, guys, and, they've got their shirt off and they're running around and, they can run a 40-yard dash and, 4.5 and, oh my gosh, could you believe if we have a quarterback that athletic and that capable and, that amount of arm strength, he'd be great. But it never amounts to success in the NFL. It never has. So Josh Allen, to me, is the biggest, I believe he will be the biggest bust in the NFL. Now, I'm not going to break down quarterbacks and tell you, he's got his arm, his mechanics look just perfect, and, his release is so quick and all of that. I'm not here to do that. Again, I'm not here to give you information. I'm here to help you digest that information. How do we filter that information? That's what I'm here to do. And I'm looking at all of the information that has been given to me on Josh Allen. And there's not been one thing that has really stood out to me and pointed to him having success at the NFL level. And he's going to be taken early in this draft. I would be shocked if he drops out of the top 10. But I wouldn't touch him in the first 3 rounds. Last year, by the way, I ranked quarterbacks as follows. I said I had Deshaun Watson 1. And here was what I said about Deshaun Watson. I told you last year, and this was before the draft, you can go find this episode of the podcast. If you really want it, I'll send it to you. But I told you last year, at the start of the draft, that Deshaun Allen was the most polished, most ready quarterback to come into the league and win games. And everybody thought, oh, that's crazy, Deshaun Watson's not going to win games. No, listen. He completed a bunch of passes at Clemson. He was a leader there, and he was the reason they won the college football championship and didn't go 9-3. He was the reason. Okay, Deshaun Watson to me was a no-brainer. Now, I don't think he was an incredible talent. I don't think he's going to be a star in the NFL, but I think he's a capable franchise quarterback and a perfect fit for Houston. The second quarterback I had ranked last year was Pat Mahomes, who I told you, Pat Mahomes does a lot of things really well, but he is so raw, it's going to take a perfect fit for him to work. He went to Kansas City, sat behind Alex Smith, and now he's going to get Andy Reid going into next year. Now, the jury is still out on Pat Mahomes. We don't know everything we need to yet, but I do believe Pat Mahomes is going to see some success in the NFL. I don't believe it will be this season. I think Kansas City will be right around 7-9, 8-8. But I believe you will see some sparks from Mahomes, and you're going to have a lot to look forward to in the coming years. At third, I told you it was Deshaun Kaiser. I said this is all going to be dependent upon fit, but I did not like Brian Kelly coming out and saying he's not ready for this level. Now, that's different than what Jim Mora came out and said Josh Rosen wouldn't be a good fit for some teams. That, to me, is fine. But if your former coach comes out and says you're not ready for this level, that was a huge red flag for me. And fourth was Mitch Trubisky. Now, why did I have Trubisky ranked fourth? What I said last year is that everybody kept telling me how great his arm was, and everybody was so enamored with his arm strength, just like Josh Allen. But what I said was his game's raw, he wasn't allowed to start until his senior year at UNC, and he did not complete 60% of his passes. That's why I had Trubisky ranked fourth. After year 1, I already feel vindicated after those rankings. I already feel vindicated. So, without further ado, here's my quarterback ranking for this year. All right, we're going to start off at 1, and I'm going to make a note here. Okay, I've got 2 quarterbacks at 1. I like one of these guys a little bit better than the other, but I think they're each a fit for specific teams. Okay? And their stock could rise or fall based on who takes them. So I'm going to say 1A and 1B instead of 1 and 2. So at 1A, my favorite quarterback is Josh Rosen. Okay, and here's the reason why. He throws the best ball out of anyone in this year's draft class, and that, by the way, is indisputable among scouts. Everybody says he's got the most polished passing technique in this year's draft. I'm not making that up. That's not a note from me. That's from other scouts. He has tremendous pocket presence and a rapid, quick release, according to every scouting report out there. When faced with tough opponents, his numbers actually got better last year. Against Texas A&M, he threw for nearly 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. He completed 66%, threw for nearly 500 yards and 3 touchdowns against a really good defensive team, Stanford. And then against USC, he had over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. His one clunker last year, and I'll admit this was a bad game, was against Washington. But the Huskies easily had the best defense in the Pac-12 last year. And I'm sorry, but Chris Peterson coaches circles around Jim Mora and did so for 3 hours last year. Rosen's one negative on everybody's scouting report is that he's smart. Sometimes you have to be careful with these scouting reports. Some things are real criticisms, some things aren't. Okay, I'm sorry, but this is not a real criticism, him being smart. I need quarterbacks to diagram plays, break down defenses, and adjust multiple times with 20 seconds left on the play clock. Like, if your quarterback's one negative is that he's too smart, that just means you should have drafted him yesterday, especially if you're a dumb franchise. You need smart guys in your locker room. So Josh Rosen, I have as my 1A. To me, he's the best quarterback in this year's draft. By the way, I'm going to give you a mock draft near the end of this podcast. I'm going to tell you the first 10 picks of the draft. Okay. 1B, Sam Darnold. Now, this one again has caused a lot of controversy. Darnold, like Rosen, throws an absolutely beautiful ball. I'm not a big fan of comparisons, but if I had to make one, Darnold actually reminds me a lot of Andrew Luck. He's got this laid-back demeanor during press conferences. He's big, he's athletic, and his game is still a little raw. His biggest complaint is that he throws interceptions. And I'm going to give it to you. I do agree that it's a legitimate complaint and it is something to keep an eye on. But people, you've got to put this in perspective. His first 3 games last year, he was working with a completely different offense than he was with the year before. He lost so many players from that team 2 years ago and was given a completely new team. And in every game, by the way, where he threw more than 1 interception, USC won. And in 2 of those games, they scored more than 40 points. Okay, so it's not like these games where Sam Darnold was throwing interceptions, they were playing bad. No, the games when they were playing bad was when he had absolutely no help and when they faced an elite head coach. Like Brian Kelly destroyed USC. Why? Because Brian Kelly is a much, much better coach. And so, listen, whenever they face elite coaching, USC tends to struggle. I'm not going to blame that on Sam Darnold. To me, Sam Darnold is one of the most guaranteed quarterbacks I've seen in this league. I don't believe Darnold or Rosen have any chance to bust at all. Yeah, Darnold throws some picks, but those picks don't result in your team having bad games. So don't listen. Listen to everything, but don't be chained or slaved to anything. Listen to everything. Don't be chained to anything. The interceptions are a big deal, but don't be so chained to them that you aren't willing to look past it and see everything else Darnold brings to the table. Okay, number 3, Baker Mayfield. Now, I'm going to start off by saying I wouldn't draft him. There are just certain characteristics I'm not willing to overlook. Just like I'm never going to hire anybody who has a shirtless selfie as their profile picture, I would never draft a quarterback with a police video. I just wouldn't. Also, people keep comparing Baker Mayfield to Russell Wilson. Stop. Wilson is incredibly fast, like insanely fast. Mayfield is average on his best days. Wilson has a cannon for an arm. Mayfield has an average arm. Wilson is a man. He visits kids in hospitals, gives speeches, stays out of politics. Mayfield, on the other hand, grabbed his junk on the field in the middle of a game, has a police video, and can't leave his bedroom without wearing a bandana. These two couldn't be further apart. Now, all of that said, Mayfield is the oldest quarterback out of the bunch, which, quite frankly, given the police video, the bandana, and everything else, little concerning that the oldest quarterback here is a bit immature. He did, however, complete a lot of passes in college, and he can run the run-pass option offense, which has been making its way to the NFL. That is very real. If, and this is a big if, Mayfield can end up in the right fit, aka Arizona, I do believe he could win some games right away. And I believe his first year, by the way, he likely may look better than Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen. But he does not have a very high ceiling. And if he ends up in the wrong place, Cincy, Cleveland, Jets, etc., he'll be out of the league in 3 years. Okay, at 4th, I've got Lamar Jackson. Most will be paying attention to Rosen, Darnold, Mayfield, and Allen. But I actually think Jackson could work in this league. Let me be clear, though. Like everybody else in this quarterback, not named Rosen or Darnold, it absolutely has to be the right fit for Lamar Jackson to be successful. If a team with a defensive coach or a team that needs him to play now picks him up, he will have no chance. But if a team like Washington, for instance, drafts him and sits him behind Alex Smith for 2 years, this could work. There are some concerns. He completed just 59% in his senior year, and that was under Bobby Petrino's system, which is a system that makes quarterbacks look better than they actually are. So that bit concerning, but he does throw a nice ball, and he has a unique ability to improvise when a play breaks down. My biggest criticism is that he looks like a toothpick, but if he can sit for the next 2 years, gain some muscle, and I mean, like, he's going to have to bulk up and have his hand held while learning under a smart coach like Jay Gruden, I do believe he could have a bright future in this league. Like, I really do. And I'll tell you this. I believe that completion percentage thing where, under 60% don't draft, which is not just me. Like, that is a legitimate thing. You can go look at these NFL quarterbacks over 60% is the magic number. While I do believe in that, we know that there are exceptions with physical freaks. And Lamar Jackson is so wickedly fast, I would put him in that category. He can do things other quarterbacks cannot do. Okay? That is one of the reasons I would put him up on this draft. I would put him up on my draft board. Okay? I wouldn't take him top 2, but if I'm a team in need of a quarterback and we're at the 8th pick and I don't have anybody else, I would absolutely be paying attention to him. Okay, and then 5th, lastly, I really have tried the past couple of weeks to give him a chance, but honestly, he just reminds me too much of Mitch Trubisky. And of course, I'm talking about Josh Allen. He's big and throws the ball a mile. That's great. But he wasn't high on anyone's draft board until the combine and couldn't give you the definition of accurate. That, my friends, is Mitch Trubisky to a T. Physically, he looks like Big Ben. And that's why people love him, because he looks like Big Ben. But his game is a complete polar opposite. The teams rumored to be interested, Cleveland, Buffalo, Jets, and Denver, all need him to start year 1. Even if this works, his game is way too raw to work right now. He, like Lamar Jackson, is going to need at least 2 years under a smart, offensively minded head coach to have any chance of working in this league. Okay, there is not a chance Josh Allen comes in year 1, blows people away. If he works, which, given the benefit of the doubt, if he works, it's going to be because he went to a team that doesn't need him to play right away. Okay, Darnold, Rosen, Mayfield all have some game year 1. And will all be able to win to an extent year 1. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, that, my friends, is going to be a work in progress. You are buying an unfinished building. And Allen, it's going to take a lot of work to finish. Now, he's got the arm strength, sure. But who cares if you throw the ball a mile if you can't hit a barn? I mean, who cares? And, here's the other thing, too. Everybody keeps talking about his arm strength. How often in a game are you throwing the ball more than 20 yards? I got news for you. On average, it's right around 3 times a game. So you're going to take a quarterback whose biggest asset you're only going to utilize 3 times a game. That I'm not high on. I'm just not. So Josh Allen comes in at number 5th. Let's segue to this. Change topics a little bit, and then I'm going to give you my mock NFL draft. So one of the reasons I got into podcasting is because of my love for sports radio. Most of you know that. Cowherd, Dan Patrick, Jim Rome, Le Batard, even play-by-play guys like Vin Scully are all big role models of mine. Like, I've been listening to radio since I was a kid. I love those guys. Yet every once in a while, when I'm listening to radio, I hear something so profoundly dumb, I have to stop what I'm doing and write it down. So, yesterday, I'm listening to the Dan Patrick Show and heard one of his guests come on and talk about LeBron's most likely destinations for next year. Like LeBron's likely leaving Cleveland. He's going to be a free agent. He can go a number of different places. What I heard next was so astonishingly dumb, I slammed on my brakes, pulled into the nearest parking lot, and played it back. I was in the middle of town, too. This statement was so dumb it could have been responsible for a 5-car pileup in downtown Roanoke. This expert, who shall remain nameless for his own good, suggested that LeBron could end up in Portland next year. Not, Los Angeles, the biggest brand in basketball, the third biggest city in the U.S., a media mecca where Magic, Kobe, and Kareem played. Not to mention the city where LeBron has not one but two homes. He didn't say New York, which is maybe the second biggest brand in basketball, is starred for even a playoff game and is the biggest city in the country. Not Houston, a rapidly growing city, and has two of the best guards in a guard-driven league. Not Cleveland, where LeBron grew up and still remains has quite a bit of affection for. Not even like Miami, where LeBron could reunite with Pat Riley. No. This expert suggested Portland. Portland. I'm not sure that Portland is known for anything other than tall trees and nice beer. And even the tall trees, the best tall trees we all know are in Northern California, not Portland. Like, Portland, Oregon might be a nice place to visit, but it will never be the location of where a sport's biggest star, a legend, will choose to end their career. Like, this isn't complicated. LeBron's going to go to Houston, LA, or Cleveland next year. Now, I know, I settled in New York a few months ago, but that was before Porzingis essentially died. You probably could have even convinced me of the Spurs, but now that they've kicked Kawhi Leonard to the curb and then stomped on his head, I'll pass. Don't overcomplicate the obvious. Like, there's never a reason to do that. The other thing I heard that I find to be incredibly dumb, but on a slightly lesser note, is that LeBron will once again not win the MVP. Let me preface this by saying that under the current description of the NBA MVP, I somewhat understand the argument. This award goes to most valuable player during the regular season. Now, I still disagree, because if you took James Harden off of Houston, they still have Chris Paul and Clint Capella, and they're still a 3 or 4 seed in the West. If you took LeBron off Cleveland, they wouldn't even make playoffs. So, like, to me, if we're using the word valuable, shouldn't it go to the player who has the most value to the franchise? Nevertheless, I do understand those that would vote for Harden over LeBron. Harden is having an absolutely incredible year. Totally get it. But here's what doesn't make sense to me. The NBA awards are given based on regular season performance. Since when has the NBA ever been about the regular season? What do we say about Michael Jordan? 6-0 in the finals. What about Charles Barkley? Oh, he never won a finals. Phil Jackson won 11 finals with 2 different players. The Lakers-Celtics rivalry. Again, it was greatest and most remembered when they played in the finals. We always criticize LeBron for his performance in the finals. Yet last year, the media spent 6 months kicking and screaming for LeBron resting during regular season games. Why was he resting? He wanted to be ready for the finals, because that is what he ultimately knows he will be graded on when he retires. Even though he's played every game this year, and he has, you can still tell there are games where he's only giving 50%, because again, the NBA isn't and hasn't ever really been about the regular season. The NBA is about the postseason. It's always been about the postseason. So why do we continue to evaluate MVP on a regular season only? Isn't it time the NBA admitted it revolves around May and June and not December or January? Like, to me, this is the biggest no-brainer of them all. Give it to Harden, fine. But why can't, give it to Harden this year. But why can't we just admit the NBA is about the postseason and change these awards to, let's give them out in between the conference finals and the NBA finals, or after the NBA finals? Because that ultimately is what matters in the NBA. In the NFL, that's not the case. In Major League Baseball, that's not the case. We all love the Dodgers. But in the NBA, it really is about the playoffs. And ultimately, what do you do in the finals? That's what it comes down to. So, I mean, like, if LeBron takes Cleveland to the finals, which I think he will, and James Harden can't get Houston to the finals, which I don't think he will because there's Golden State sitting there, who's more valuable to their team? I mean, just ask yourself this. Why can't we choose the NBA MVP during the postseason rather than at the end of the regular season? I've never understood that. Okay, we're going to end with this. So there's this NFL draft happening in a few weeks. I've given you my thoughts on the quarterbacks. Okay, but I want to give you my NFL mock draft. And I'm just going to go and preface this by saying my mock draft is going to be crazier than anybody else's. Okay? It's going to be absolutely absurd if it happens like this. And you might laugh, but all I'm going to ask is that you hear me out on everything that's going to happen. And I'm probably going to do one more show before the NFL draft. This probably will get altered a little bit because there may very well be some new information between now and then. One thing to keep an eye out for, by the way, and I'm kind of starting to watch the pieces fall into place. I believe the Patriots may try and make a trade into the top 10 of the draft. I don't know for sure, but I'm looking at what they're doing, and there's some things starting to happen there. Okay, so let's go mock draft. I'm going to start off pick number 1. So Cleveland's on the clock, right? Okay, there is potential for them to trade down from this number 1 pick. And that is where things could get crazy. But I don't think Cleveland's going to. I believe the Browns will select with the first pick of the draft, Sam Darnold. If the Browns draft anyone else here, I'm going to make fun of them forever. Not only is Sam Darnold going to work in the NFL, he is exactly the quarterback the Browns need because he's capable of working in the AFC North. Okay, Rosen I like, he doesn't work in the AFC North. Neither does Baker Mayfield. Neither does Lamar Jackson. And I don't think Josh Allen's going to work at all, so he wouldn't either. Darnold is big, able to absorb big hits, throws the ball downfield, super smart, and is really accurate. Don't be dumb. Take the obvious. All right, number 2. Now, this is where things get interesting. Okay, because there's a lot of demand for this Giants pick. And if the Browns were to trade down from number 1, interestingly enough, the Giants pick at number 2 would become even more valuable to other franchises. Okay, so there's a lot of chance for them to trade down. I believe they will. And the one team I think is going to trade with them is one team nobody else is picking. I believe the Giants will trade with the Broncos. And I believe the Broncos will select Josh Rosen. Okay, listen, John Elway came out a few months ago and said he knew this team had whiffed on Paxton Lynch. However, he also said they aren't going to give up drafting quarterbacks. In fact, they're going to get more aggressive. That's why they went after Cousins and eventually settled on Case Keenum. Keenum is not a long-term plan for Denver. And I believe they'll aim for the fences again this year. But trading up to acquire my favorite quarterback in this year's draft, Josh Rosen, is exactly what Denver needs to do. I believe Denver trades into number 2 and then takes Josh Rosen. At number 3, the New York Jets. And the New York Jets are going to take the quarterback they love, Josh Allen. So this, by the way, first, second, third pick, or at quarterbacks. I know I spent an entire segment on how I don't believe Allen will work in the NFL, but I actually would totally understand New York drafting him here. The organization hasn't had a franchise quarterback since Brett Favre came over for a couple of seasons, and they haven't had a quarterback to truly build around since Chad Pennington. They see Brady retiring soon. Tannehill is now injured all the time, and the Bills likely will try to move up for Allen if they're given the chance. So the Jets, I think, if they don't trade up to do this, I think they're absolutely going to take Josh Allen at number 3. This is, by the way, the player they're rumored to like the best. He does have a strong arm, which you will want for those AFC East snow games. So I think the Jets take Josh Allen. Now, number 4. Okay, this is the Browns again. The Browns already took the quarterback. They don't need a quarterback. We've now had a quarterback taken at 1, 2, and 3. Meaning a team here will be desperate for a quarterback. So the Browns will have a ton of value at number 4. And I believe they will trade down with the Arizona Cardinals. And the Cardinals will select Baker Mayfield. So here we are, top 4 picks. I've got quarterbacks. Yes, I realize I'm the only person in the world who would call for 4 quarterbacks to be taken with the first 4 picks. Maybe that sounds like madness to you. But Arizona, like the Jets, are desperate for a quarterback. Look, Sam Bradford has had a decent career and may be okay for a few games, but he's never played through an entire season. At some point, he will get injured. It's not a matter of if, but when. The Cardinals also know the Rams have gone from playoff team to top 3 in the league. And the 49ers will be much improved with Garoppolo. Arizona takes a player I believe could be decent in year 1 and win some games, Baker Mayfield at number 4. All right, number 5. So I told you the Giants traded at number 2. Broncos had the number 5 pick. I believe this is where New York would trade with. So there would be a swap here, and New York would be at number 5. And with that pick, they're going to take the player they're rumored to love, Saquon Barkley. Many people are predicting the Giants to trade down from the number 2 pick, but I believe they're looking at the wrong trade. One of the reasons I have them trading with Denver is because they can stay in the top 5 and have a chance to draft Barkley, who they are rumored to absolutely love. All right, at number 6, Indianapolis Colts. There is a lot of chance here that they could trade down, but I believe last year Andrew Luck could have played all year long, but didn't, and I believe this was all part of a plan. Him coming back was all part of a plan, and I believe for him to agree to that plan, there had to be some sort of guarantee for offensive linemen. Quentin Nelson is who the Colts will pick, and Nelson is considered a zero-bust player of this year's draft and will be a very popular pick in Indianapolis. All right, at number 7, Tampa Bay Bucks. I believe they will take Bradley Chubb. Defensive ends are very hard to find in the NFL. Quality defensive ends are incredibly hard to find. The Bucks last year ranked last in the NFL in sacks per game at just 1.4. Playing in the NFC South with Breeze, Cam, and Matt Ryan, they need a quality pass rusher. Chubb is a perfect fit. Number 8, Chicago Bears. I think they're going to draft Tremaine Edmonds out of Virginia Tech. This is the one pick that could go a number of different ways. Like Cameron Meredith on the way out, the Bears need a good receiver. They could take Calvin Ridley. They also need tremendous help at defense and could draft a number of players. Or they could trade down to acquire multiple picks. I don't know how much value there will be for a trade. The Bears have a history with linebackers. So, I think they're going to take Tremaine Edmonds, a very talented linebacker from Virginia Tech. Number 9, 49ers. Just like the Bucks, San Francisco was one of the worst teams in the league last year at rushing the passer. Ranked 26th in the league in sacks per game. Looking at all of the players the Rams have added, the fact that Arizona is likely going to draft a quarterback and you're facing Russell Wilson twice, I think the Niners are going to go after a very solid defensive lineman, Vita Vea, out of Washington. And then lastly, with the 10th pick, told you I'm only going to do top 10. And my voice is dying. Top 10, 10th pick, I'm going Micah Fitzpatrick to the Oakland Raiders. Last year, Oakland ranked 24th in the league in passing yards allowed. This year, Kansas City is starting Pat Mahomes. Denver is likely drafting a quarterback somewhere, and the Chargers are going to bring back Phillip Rivers. They need a good defensive back. Not to mention, the Raiders GM, Reggie McKenzie, loves SEC guys and has a habit of taking them early in the NFL draft. I believe Micah Fitzpatrick, if he falls to 10, and he may not, but if he does, the Raiders will be all over him to help out their issues in the secondary. So there is your top 10 draft picks, my mock NFL draft. So I hope you enjoyed it. Again, this was a weekend special. You can, of course, find me doing Virginia Sports Report every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Go to facebook.com/Virginia Sports Report. You can find us there, twitter.com/VA Sports Report as well. And make sure you go to virginiasportsreport.com. If you're an NFL draft fan, by the way, I wrote an article on this fantastic quarterback out of the University of Richmond, who I think could be a steal in the draft. Like late in the draft, if a team like New England needs a quarterback, Kyle Luetta could be available. And I believe he would be a very nice pick for a number of NFL teams. So go read that there. And again, tweet, Facebook me if you guys have any ideas or have anything to say, and I'll put that on next week's or on the next podcast I do. Thanks for listening. This is the CJ Sweat Show Weekend Special. Have a good afternoon.